Uh-oh, somebody has mommy issues. Hey guys, MasakoX here. As we're continuing our new segment, What If Weekly, instead of What If Week, we are continuing with one of the actual entire what if scenario big hitters. It's one of those what ifs that I snubbed for the longest time, thinking that there wasn't really anything you could do with it. But once I actually began to tackle it, I discovered there's a lot more potential here than I first thought. It turned out to be a sensation. I had no idea that you guys were clamoring for it for so long. What am I talking about exactly? Well, I mean, the clue's in the title, but here right now, it's what if Gine went with Goku to Earth? For those of you who might not be aware of who Gine is exactly, she is the mother of Goku, or in this case in this story, Kakarot, because there was no need to rename the child. She and Bardock weren't exactly lovers, because Saiyans don't really do that. They were more like confidants. They got on with each other and they trusted each other, but they weren't in a traditional relationship. Using a combination of the Bardock TV special world as well as the Dragon Ball Minus world, the recanonization of the Toriyama interpretation of the Bardock thing, yeah, it got really complicated and wasn't really received well on its own, but putting them together, I managed to come up with a facsimile which surprisingly works well, and even if it's me saying myself. In the previous two parts, Gine was the kind of person who wanted to blend in with her new world and remain unseen. But as soon as King Piccolo arrives, who turns out to be the first being that could actually take over the world, Gine had no choice but to step in and show that, despite her very demure appearance, she was pretty much the strongest on Earth. Together with Grandpa Gohan and Roshi, the three of them were able to seal King Piccolo away again. When we start the proceedings for the Dragon Ball Z series events, Gine and Kakarot have been low-key training for the past 5 years. Nowhere near as much as they were with Kami before the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament, but still, it's a pretty good lick. Besides, Gine is all too smitten with becoming a grandmother because grandparent Saiyans don't really happen because, you know, battling and stuff. She's become a whole new person, embracing her human side now, eschewing the bad parts of her Saiyan heritage, whilst also remembering the fundamentals of it. However, the biggest test for her in her new human life has now arrived. Raditz, her firstborn. Mother and son are locked eyes, standing deathly still, with Kakarot remaining entirely confused. Gine then explains to Kakarot, who is looking really puzzled, that this is his long-lost brother Raditz. Well, now found brother. Kakarot is now astounded and somewhat curious. He begins to walk around his brother, who is looking really confused as to why the Saiyan, instead of trying to attack, is just going like, huh, so you're my brother, huh? Raditz is just standing there getting more and more bemused and also more and more angry. This is so un-Saiyan-like, asking questions instead of taking names. This is just not right. He wants to actually try and attack his brother to see what he can do, but he then remembers the power levels that were registered on his scouter earlier. They were around about the same as his, and he puts two and two together and just goes, "What? My mother and brother are the same power as me? Oh, this is not good for Raditz." Remember, Raditz isn't your typical Saiyan. He is far more cautious, so he decides to wait it out and see how it goes. You would think that Raditz would be happy to see his mother alive after, what, maybe about 25 years of absence? But nope. He is absolutely livid. Why didn't she try to find him all of these years ago instead of just leaving him to be subjugated to so much embarrassing humility by Vegeta and Nappa? He wouldn't have had to be so subservient to Lord Frieza and just become a dog's body for two Saiyans who have no empire to rule over. What would Bardock think if he saw one of his sons being treated like a plaything by the prince? How humiliating. Gine apologizes, but then just states that by the time that she arrived on Earth, she was completely disorientated and thought that every single Saiyan died, that they were the only two left. She was weak, hungry, and carrying a baby. I think that's pretty troubling at the best of times. However, she is glad to see him alive and well and hopes that he can forgive her. However, it's not as easy as that. Raditz came to Earth to check on his younger brother and see whether he actually took over the populace, but clearly he hadn't. And also, he wasn't expecting to see two Saiyans, because remember, the Saiyan pods are usually classified for single occupancy, not two people. Well, technically one person and a baby. The others then begin to walk out, seeing what's going on because it's been a while since Kakarot and Gine exited, but then Gine tells them to go back inside. This is strictly a family matter. However, Raditz then spots Gohan and asks who that is. Kakarot then explains that this is little Gohan, named after his grandfather.
It's not a very Saiyan name, but it's good to know that the bloodline has been continued in some way.
This may be good for Raditz, but at the same time, his game plan has now been thrown out the window. Taking Kakarot by force is now out of the question. If he coerces Kakarot to join his side, he's not going to do it, and he might be taken out because Gine and Kakarot, together, could take him on. And if everybody else decided to join in, because their power levels aren't to be sniffed at, yeah, it's not going to look good for Raditz. At this point, Kakarot doesn't really see any problems and offers that Raditz should stay and actually get to know the family once more. You know, have a life. Raditz is completely surprised by this good nature. Really? They would take him in without question? Is this how Earthlings work? Live here? Without Frieza breathing down his neck? It must be said right now that there is a wry smile on the Elder Saiyan's face. He does contemplate the idea of actually having a normal existence. There are muscles being used on the Saiyan's face that have been rarely used. He doesn't often smile, especially these days. He begins to touch his face, feeling kind of embarrassed, but the legacy of his past is become all too clear for him when he actually touches his scouter. Yeah. He is kind of bound in a contract. If he decided to bail and betray both Vegeta and Frieza, they would easily find him and destroy him. So what does he do? He can't stay here, he'd be endangering everybody. But he can't take Kakarot because he'd be endangering himself. And then of course there's his mother. His mind is now made up. He takes off his scouter and carefully covers the microphone piece with his finger, trying to hopefully block out any sound. He confesses to them that there are two stronger Saiyans out there. More Saiyans survived the explosion and were off-world. He doesn't want to drag his now existing family into this whole matter because this prince would gladly take out his frustration and use his royal title, having realized there are more Saiyans about. He comes clean with Kakarot, saying that his real intention was to come and take him to join Frieza's forces, but that ain't gonna happen now. He has no other choice. He can't return to Lord Frieza empty-handed because he would kill him. Because now, all that Raditz can do is to go dark. Gine suddenly begins to well up and walks over to her firstborn and places her hands over his face in a maternal manner. It's quite clear that Raditz is getting frustrated and saddened, but she shushes him softly and says that it's okay, she's just really relieved that he's alive. She always knew that he would survive somehow, that he had way more sense than his father. He's always thinking things through and planning ahead instead of being the average Saiyan brute. Raditz then retorts saying that he doesn't really deserve to live anymore. He's killed thousands of people at this point. He is not a clean soul. But then Gine shushes him again. He wasn't doing it out of malice. He was doing that under the orders of Lord Frieza. As long as he is aware that what he did was wrong, that's the main thing in her eyes. There is some good in him. She understands that he cannot stay, but so long as she knows that both of her boys are alive and well and fighting the greater fight, then that's all she cares about. She can now breathe easily for the first time in decades. He makes his goodbyes, but before he leaves, he turns around to his younger brother Kakarot and says this. Brother, we will meet again. This isn't over. He places the scouter back on his face and flies away. When the rest of the crew finally emerge from the house again, they begin to ask, who exactly was that guy? Kakarot is just standing there with pride and the prospect of a good fight. Oh, him? That was my bro. But clearly from the tone of Kakarot, because he doesn't often get serious, what just happened must have been pretty heavy. Kakarot's not usually this stoic, and at the same time, Gine's trying to hold back the tears after realizing that now both her children are still in this world. When Raditz returns to his pod, he begins to realize that Vegeta's probably still listening in again, thinking that he chickened out. So Raditz comes up with a plan, and fakes his death. He punches himself in the chest with all of his strength, and tries to mock himself and go, "Oh no, I'm mortally injured, I'll curse you, Raditz, you moron!" He's trying to make clear that this injury is fatal. Raditz then takes off from the planet and heads out into the stars, crushing his scouter while still muttering that he's about to die. He's thinking that he's actually managed to fake his death and congratulates himself by patting himself on the back. Did it work? Did he manage to throw Vegeta off the scent? Well, he has no idea. But what he does know is that he can't go back now. He has to venture out into space and start his life again. This time though, as his own person, and knowing that his family is still alive. His little act worked and didn't work. Granted, Vegeta's not gonna go after Raditz, but the fact that he faked his death did not go unnoticed by Vegeta. He and Nappa talk about the matter and conclude that Raditz is the biggest moron of the highest order. But hey, he's weak, they don't care about him. But his brother and mother though? That's quite interesting. Maybe they could start a new colony and try and defeat Lord Frieza by regaining their numbers. This time, with his strong blood being the backbone of it. As for Nappa, he's just keen to punch things.
Hey Vegeta, can we test that brat's strength? Yeah, sure thing, Nappa. I'm curious to see if Raditz's weakness runs in the family.
Back on Earth, Kakarot and Gine look at each other and conclude that what Raditz said cannot be good. Stronger Saiyans? Prince Vegeta's still alive? Gine knows all too well that Prince Vegeta and King Vegeta were cruel beings and totally merciless. They decide to take a trip to Kami's lookout and investigate the situation. How many more Saiyans are out there? Perhaps he would know. Unfortunately, Kami isn't that much clued in as they thought, but he can sense two dark forces heading towards Earth far across the galaxy. All this while consulting telepathically with the likes of King Kai. Based on their current speed, King Kai then tells Kami that they're probably going to be arriving on Earth in about 1 year's time. Kakarot thinks that, oh, this'll be easy. Kami can just train them like they did last time. It worked back then. However, Kami states that they are far beyond his power these days. There's not much more that he can teach them. Kami apologizes for wasting their time. Kakarot, still determined for a good fight, thinks, oh, don't worry, we'll train on our own, we'll figure it out. Kami watches them head out and begins to feel really guilty. Back on the ground, Kakarot and Gine are beginning to figure out a plan with the rest of the Z-Fighters. Krillin, Yamcha and Tenshinhan aren't really sure what to do, but as they're trying to figure out some kind of plan, Kami communicates with Kakarot and Gine telepathically. King Yama has granted special dispensation for mortals to head into the other world and be trained under the tutelage of King Kai. However, King Yama had to do so much paperwork that all he could do is bring one person to the other world who is alive. Kakarot looks sad because he wanted to train with his mother again. He'd been training for the longest time with her, it was fun. However, Gine accepts this, stating that Kakarot is the future of Earth's protection. She will do what she can on Earth and train with the others. She tells Kakarot not to worry and that everything will be okay. Basically, in this situation, she's becoming the Piccolo. Kakarot begins to comprehend, nods, and hugs his mother. Later that day, Kakarot is ready to head to the lookout and then on to the other world to train. Gine promises to do her best and train with the Z-Fighters, and just like that, Kami and Kakarot are out of here, ready to do battle, and Kakarot is ready to begin his training alone. So there we go. At the end of this part, both children of Gine are now having to undertake huge challenges in their lives solo. Thanks to Raditz's tip-off and show of mercy, their gang stand a chance against Vegeta and Nappa. As for Raditz himself, the galaxy is his oyster. Will we see him again? Perhaps. So what do you guys think? Did you like this part? Do you think it was quite interesting that Raditz took a different part to what you might have expected? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!